Our trip started out early in the Tulsa airport at 6 a.m. First, Nora made everyone think Grant Bowler died driving to the airport. Second, Avery wasn't feeling well and threw up before we even started checking bags. But mostly we were all super excited but a little groggy because of early wake up. We checked our bags, got our tickets, and headed to security. We took group pictures and said goodbye to our parents and then lined up for TSA checks. Almost all of us got through fine, but Sophia got pulled because she had scissors in her bag. We made it to our gate and went to buy snacks and breakfast. Most of us went outside the terminal for Einstein Bagels. We spent about an hour at the gate, then we boarded our short flight to Houston around 9 a.m. We arrived at the Houston airport around 10:30 a.m., where we had a 5-hour layover, which we spent getting food and hanging out. There wasn't really anything to do, so we all got bored sitting in the terminal. Originally, our layover was only supposed to be 4 hours, but it was delayed. Once we boarded the flight and took off, we had some scary turbulence. On the almost 10-hour flight, we were served breakfast and dinner along with normal snacks in between. After dinner, most people slept for a while or watched movies. Since it was an overnight flight, we got blankets that felt like towels and weird pillows. The plane was also really huge. The seating was 3 by 4 by 3 and there were like 4 bathrooms. They even had cool TV screens on the seats in front of us to watch movies. After a long flight, we arrived in the Frankfurt airport and we were really excited because our next flight was to Athens. First, we walked through the airport to get in line and stamp our passports. Once we got to our terminal, we all went to get lunch and explore the airport, which was really cool. But there were a bunch of German police officers everywhere, and that was really scary. There was even an officer that had a huge rifle. Once again, our 4-hour flight was delayed by an hour, and during the hour, almost everyone fell asleep on the airport seats. We also met a class from France that we would end up seeing a lot on our trip. On our flight, most of us slept, watched TV, and anticipated our arrival in Greece. This was a pretty smooth flight with little turbulence, and when we landed, we were also ready to begin our trip. We picked up our luggage without any problems, none were missing, and we also saw the French students again. After arriving at the airport, it was a late night, and we met our tour guide, Kostas, and our bus driver, Andreas.
Demographics are the statistics and facts of different groups, things such as income, population, and employment. Greece is located in southern Europe and has 13 administrative regions. Greece is surrounded by the Mediterranean Sea and the Aegean Sea. The population of Greece is 10,433,314 people as of Thursday, April 16, 2020. The income per capita for Greece is $17,700 a year. In 2019, Greece had a GDP of around $210 billion. The employment rate in Greece averages 83.06% from 2004 until 2020.
During the Mesolithic period from 8,300 to 7,000 BCE in Argos, Greece, there were burials found in Frantici Cave. During the Neolithic period, the first Megaron house was built in Sesklo, and there is proof of fortifications in Dimini. During the late Helladic period, from 1,500 to 1,100 BCE, they started using tholos tombs. They created the Linear B writing style in 1,450 BCE. The Trojan War occurred in 1,250 BCE. The first Olympic Games were in 776 BCE. The Greek alphabet was created in 750 BCE. Solon showed Athens a system of weights and measures and a system of coinage. Callithenes made improvements to the Athenian code of law and created a democratic constitution. In 490 BCE, the Battle of Marathon occurred, and the Athenians beat Darius and his Persian army. In 483 BCE, Athens built a naval fleet. In 480 BCE, Xerxes marched on Greece. The Battle of Thermopylae occurred. The Persians burnt the Acropolis, and with its allies, Greece beat the Persians at a naval fleet. In 477 BCE, the Delian League was led by Athens. The First Peloponnesian War happened from 461 to 445 BCE. Greece started building the Acropolis in 449 BCE, and the Parthenon was built during 449 to 432 BCE. The Temple of Athena Nike was built in 420 to 410 BCE. Philip II became king of Macedonia in 359 BCE. In 336 BCE, Philip II was assassinated, and Alexander the Great became king of Macedonia. In 331 BCE, Alexander the Great took over Egypt and created the city of Alexandria. Alexander the Great died in 323 BCE. Cleopatra died in 30 BCE, and that was the end of the ancient Greece period.
The religion found in Greece is an important part of Greek culture. Most Greeks are Christian Orthodox, but the remainder of the population is Muslim, Catholic, and Jewish. Greek mythology is a series of stories regarding the gods, heroes, and rituals of the ancient Greeks. The myths were heavily based on fiction. This was acknowledged by Plato, an important Greek philosopher who lived from the 5th to 4th century BCE. The religious devotion of the Greeks led them to believe these myths were true. Greek mythology has immensely impacted art and literature of the Western civilization. A large part of Greek mythology were the 12 Olympians, which were composed of gods and goddesses. The 12 Titans were used to describe the creation of the world, heroes, and monsters. There are quite a few festivals that take place in the summer in Greece, in both the mainland and Greek islands. The festivals are religious-based and follow the Orthodox calendar. The Orthodox calendar is similar to the Catholic calendar, but sometimes Easter is not included in the Orthodox calendar. These festivals are a large contribution to Greek culture. Greece has very unique architecture. What makes it differ from other buildings are its architectural elements. Its main architectural features include the Capitol, the frieze, the pediment, the cella, and finally the propylaea. A column classifies and distinguishes a building. It holds up the roof, and there are 3 different types of columns. The first is Doric, second is Ionic, and last are Corinthian columns.
Biology was first studied by Hippocrates, Aristotle, Theophrastus, Dioscorides, Pliny, and Galen. These people had many ideas, theories, and discoveries to science. Their observations and descriptions were found in many plants and animals. Many Greek scientists thought about the origin of life and natural selection. Aristotle believed that everything in the environment is natural selection. In ancient Greek time, they farmed olives, grapes, fruit trees, and vegetables. Grapes were used to make wine. During this time, farmers would always live on their farms or would travel their land every day. Ancient Greeks would choose their crops off the Mediterranean climate. They would also do a lot of trading of necessities and crops. Another big thing in Greece is their alphabet. It was the first alphabet script in history. They have letters and vowels along with the United States.
The main crops grown in Greece are corn, barley, fruits, wheat, vegetables, and olives. Greece is really known for its great olive oil. They grow a ton of olive trees, but they can't grow them everywhere since Greece has a lot of mountains. Olive trees can grow only at the bottom of the mountain. These olive trees can grow up to 7 meters tall. The olives that you pick early are going to be green and more bitter. The olives that you leave on the tree longer are going to be black and sweeter. You can also soak the olives, so the longer you let them soak, the sweeter, but the shorter you let them soak, they're going to be more bitter. These 2 types of olives are grown on the same tree. The best kind of olive oil is to get extra virgin olive oil because it has fewer chemicals.
Sheep and goat farming in Greece is a huge thing in Greece. It's practiced on about 300,000 farm units, which is about 155,000 farms in total. On average, there are about 84 sheep and 99 goats per farm. Most of the milk made by sheep and goats are used to make cheese, and the rest is used for traditional products. These animals take up 45% of all animals in Greece, and 15% of the total value of agricultural products. Sheep and goat farming employs over 500,000 people. Overall, farming these animals is extremely important to the Greeks.
The dogs of Greece own the streets. There are so many stray dogs that the citizens leave food and water out for them. There's an article by BBC that states that there are about 1 million stray dogs and cats in Greece. All stray dogs in Greece are taken in and vaccinated by the government. After they are vaccinated, they get their ears clipped so that everyone knows they're vaccinated, and then get released back into the streets. Most stray dogs in Greece are pretty healthy and friendly. Petting a stray dog in the U.S. to some is considered dumb because it could be rabid, but petting a dog in Greece is usually a great idea and an easy way to make a new
We
friend.
landed our last flight in Athens to a beautiful sunset and got all of our luggage at baggage claim. We met our tour guide Kostas and got all of our luggage and bags onto the bus, then headed to our first hotel. My first perception of Athens was that it was very old-fashioned. A lot of the buildings looked old, but the insides were actually very modern. The weather was really nice outside and it was super dark out. The streets were busy and there were a lot of cars honking at one another.
The hotel room was small with all of our luggage in the room, and the view from the hotel was very nice and we could see far down the streets.
For dinner, we had an appetizer, a main course, and dessert. For the appetizer, we had a spinach pie and a salad. For our main course, we had chicken with potatoes, peas, carrots, and some more vegetables. Then we had some fruit salad, which included apples, oranges, a cherry, and more fruits with some sweet flavored sauce. After dinner, mostly all of us split into groups and went to an ATM with a teacher to get euros. After we got our euros from the ATM, some of us went to a kiosk. Some of us got ice cream, others got chips, and others got other types of food.
Then we all finally got back to our rooms and went to bed shortly after room checks. We got up at 7 a.m. the next morning and ate breakfast on the half floor. For breakfast, we had the option of many things that consisted of bread, different types of loaves, croissants, orange juice, cranberry juice, water, cereal, milk, and different types of jams. Next, we left the hotel and went to the first modern Olympic Games, which is known as the beautiful marble stadium. The stadium was used in the 1896 Summer Olympics, officially known as the Games of the Olympics. It was the first International Olympic Games held in modern history, organized by the International Olympic Committee. It was held in Athens, Greece from April 6 to April 15th of 1896. We rode around Athens on the bus and saw many things on our way to the Acropolis, including remains of Zeus's temple. Zeus's temple is the largest and most significant temple in Greece at Olympia, made to honor Zeus. The Temple of Zeus was a stunningly beautiful example of ancient Greek architecture. Inside was a huge statue of Zeus, which was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world.
When we got to the Acropolis, we stopped at the Herodes Theater. The Herodes Theater is built at the base of the Acropolis and is one of the best places to experience a live classical theater. This ancient theater was built in the Roman times around 161 AD by the Roman philosopher, teacher, and political Herodes Atticus. It was built in memory of his wife, Aspasia Regilla, who died in 160 AD. We walked up to the Parthenon and learned lots of things about the Acropolis and the Parthenon. The Acropolis in Athens, Greece is one of the most famous archaeological sites in the world. Located on a limestone hill high above Athens, Greece, the Acropolis has been visited since prehistoric times. Over centuries, the Acropolis has been many things, such as a home to kings, a mythical home of the gods, a religious center, and a tourist attraction. The Acropolis has great significance, the most famous being the Parthenon, which is the temple that dominates the hill of the Acropolis. The Acropolis was built in 438 BC. When we got to the Parthenon, we learned some more things, then had about 1 hour to tour the Acropolis, to take pictures, and enjoy the incredible views. Once we all met back down at the bottom of the Acropolis, we had free time at around 12:30 p.m. Everyone went to go eat lunch and shop a little bit after if we had extra time.
We always stayed in groups of 3 or more. My group stopped and got a cheese pizza that was good, and some really good chicken with pita bread with cheese melted on top. We met back around 1:45 p.m. and went to the Acropolis Museum and got to see a lot of cool and interesting things. The Acropolis Museum is an archaeological museum focused on the findings of the archaeological site of the Acropolis of Athens. The museum was built to house every artifact found on the rock and on the surrounding slopes from the Greek Bronze Age to the Roman and Byzantine Greece. Next, we made our way to a local jewelry place where many of us got custom necklaces, bracelets, and keychains as souvenirs. Most people's souvenirs they purchased had their name carved into it in Greek. Next, we had about a 30-minute walk into a town in Athens. We stopped at the Metropolitan Cathedral of Athens, which is a very famous church.
Kostas explained to us that we had a task during free time to either try Greek coffee or baklava.
After we finished coffee, everyone went to different places to shop and do other fun things. My group went to Dr. Fish, which is a day spa, nail bar, massage, and a fish spa. We enjoyed the fish spa, which is where red gara fish suck off the dead skin on your feet. It was really relaxing but ticklish. We also did a lot of souvenir shopping. At around 6:15 p.m., we went to dinner at a restaurant in Greece called Misafir. We had pasta with sauce and beef, which was pretty good. Then, for dessert, we had plain Greek yogurt with honey on top. After dinner, while we were walking down the street, we stopped and said hi to the other global group at their dinner. Then we went back to the hotel and went to bed to get ready for our drive to Delphi in the morning.
The morning leaving for Delphi, we left our hotel at 8:30. Driving to Delphi, we passed amazing mountain ranges, beautiful plains, small villages, and we also passed Lake Marathon. This lake was important because it leads to the Athenians' victory in the Marathon War, which inspired many Greeks to take on Xerxes. This battle took place in 490 BC, where the Athenians were battling the Persians. This war helped shape the geographic structure of Greece, and this battle became very important to modern-day Greece, where the first Western civilization was started. As we kept driving, we stopped to look at an overview of a town named after Arachne, a Greek goddess who was known for her weaving skills. After we saw the town, we stopped at the ancient Castalian Springs, where we learned how the water was important for the rituals and for the people to clean themselves before entering the temple. As we were walking towards the Temple of Apollo, our tour guide was explaining how cities were torn down to unveil this ancient temple. As we kept walking up the mountain, we visited the Temple of Apollo. The Temple of Apollo is an important Greek religious sanctuary and is dedicated to the Greek god Apollo, who was the god of healing, medicine, archery, music, and poetry.
The Temple of Apollo was first built around the 7th century BC and was destroyed twice before being rebuilt again in 330 BC. The temple was a very simple design with 6 columns at the front and 15 towards the back. When people entered the temple, there were said to be natural fumes in the ground that made people hallucinate. Although the temple was dedicated to Apollo, it was home to the Oracle of Delphi. The oracle was used as a communication tool to help great leaders and individuals be able to speak to the gods. People would come to ask the gods questions about important things in their lives. This oracle is very special because it was said to be located in the center of the world. In ancient Greece, Zeus, who was a Greek god, sent 2 eagles around the world, and the birds met up in Delphi. People came from around the world to seek answers from the oracle because it was never wrong. It would give an answer, then it determined on your interpretation to figure out what to do with that answer. After we visited the ruins of the temple, we went to the Delphi Archaeological Museum. The museum holds the history of Delphi region and pieces of the original temple that held the most famous oracle in Greece. The museum was full of sculptures, statues, and small items that had a major role in the region of Delphi. As we entered the city of Delphi, we realized it was much smaller than any other place that we have been. Although the city was small, it was full of history, beauty, and was one of our favorite places we visited.
On day 5, we traveled to the Varlaam Monastery in the Meteora region. We stayed at the Hotel Costa Famisi in Kalambaka. Meteora, meaning suspended in the air, is a group of monasteries built upon rocks that were formed 60 million years ago. The rocks are made up of conglomerate and sandstone. The average height is 1,000 feet, with several reaching 1,800 feet. The pillars were sculpted by a series of earthquakes, rain, and wind. The monastery that we visited is an all-male Greek Orthodox monastery. The monastery of Varlaam is the second biggest monastery in Meteora. The monastery was named after its founder, a hermit monk named Varlaam, who first inhabited the rock and built the chapel in the 14th century, dedicated to the 3 hierarchs. After Varlaam died, the chapel was abandoned until the 16th century, when 2 brothers, Theophanes and Nectarios, enlarged the chapel and built the monastery that still stands today. Inside, you can see an old pulley system that the monks used to bring up people and provisions. There is also a large 16th century oak barrel used for water storage. After the tour, we got to explore the balcony outside the monastery, take pictures, and shop. We also had lunch in one of the restaurants nearby. After our visit to the monasteries, we had dinner and we celebrated Sarah Turner's birthday. The monasteries of Meteora were a great way to learn about the Greek Orthodox religion. The monasteries had an unforgettable view, and overall, it was a great experience.
The next day, we visited the Meteora Natural History Museum and Mushroom Museum. The museum contained a vast collection of mammals and birds from Greece, Europe, and other parts of the world, as well as a mushroom exhibit which is the first of its kind in Greece. The museum accommodates roughly 300 exhibits of stuffed birds and animals, each placed in dioramas that portray their natural habitats and ecosystems. Some of the animals depicted in the exhibits are under protection or have gone extinct. The mushroom portion of the museum houses around 250 lifelike sculptures of mushrooms. We learned which ones are edible, which ones make you sick, and which ones are deadly to humans. The mushroom sculptures are made to seem realistic. They are the same size, shape, and color as the mushrooms they are portraying as. It also has a gift shop. Afterward, we went back to the bus to start the long journey to Thessaloniki.
Thessaloniki was established in the 4th century BC by King Cassander of Macedon. Thessaloniki means victory over the Thessaly people in Greek. Thessaloniki is the second largest city in Greece, after Athens, and has a population of about 1.106 million people. Thessaloniki is located on the Thermit Gulf of the Aegean Sea and is a port city. The Thessaloniki port is one of the major contributors to Thessaloniki's economy. The reason that it is such a major contributor is that it is one of the largest ports in the Aegean, and it's a free port, so it is a major gateway to the Balkan Peninsula. The climate in Thessaloniki is largely affected by the Aegean Sea. Thessaloniki has a transitional climate zone that is made up of 3 different zones: humid subtropical climate, Mediterranean climate, and semi-arid climate. The winters are usually cold and relatively dry, and the summers are usually really dry and hot. We were in Thessaloniki from day 6 to day 8. While we were there, we visited many famous Thessaloniki sites, like the Rotunda, the Hagia Sophia, the Jewish Holocaust Memorial, the Metropoli, the statue of Alexander the Great, and the White Tower. When we first arrived in Thessaloniki, we were given free time, which a lot of us used to go down to the beach that was just a short walk from our hotel. We all had fun and took lots of pictures. We watched the sunset, and then we were kicked off the property by the landlord, who was just trying to close the gate. After we got back to the hotel the first night, many of us discovered that the showers were very, very small, and most of our showers flooded. This was definitely the nicest hotel that we had stayed in the entire trip. We decided to sleep with the balcony door open because our room was really, really hot, and we woke up to a scare in the morning because we thought we saw someone on our balcony. The next day was one of the busiest days of our trip. When we first left the hotel, we went to see the statue of Alexander the Great in the White Tower. The statue showed Alexander riding his horse Bucephalus. The statue was built in 1974 and stands at 20 feet high. The White Tower was built in the 15th century after the fall of Thessaloniki to the Ottomans in 1430. Over the years, it was referred to by various names: the Lion Tower, Tower of Kalmaria, Tower of Janissaries, and the Tower of Blood. In 1833, on orders of the Sultan Abdul Hamid II, the tower was painted white and given the name White Tower, which has stuck ever since. After visiting the White Tower, we went on a tour around Thessaloniki. We visited a well-preserved Byzantine-era fortress, we went inside the Hagia Sophia, and we walked around the streets until it was time for the scavenger hunt. We started the scavenger hunt in Aristotle Square. We were assigned a group of 6 with a different Greek god/goddess, and had a list of different monuments, food, and ingredients that we were sent to find and take a picture of. We had around 3 hours to complete this. We could find all the items in whatever order we really wanted to, but my group started off finding all of the ingredients for the different recipes. The marketplace was where Kostas told us that we should go and find all the stuff. While we were there, we saw some people who looked like pickpockets running around the market with different bags and yelling, and the bags looked like they did not belong to them and that they belonged to other people who were there. After that, it was our goal to find all the food next and take all the pictures. But we ran into a problem because we found all of the other food items besides the kazan dippy. Since we couldn't find it, we decided to take a break from the food, and we started on the 4 monuments. We had done the Jewish Holocaust Monument earlier in that day, so we went out to find the Rotunda, Hagia Sophia, and the Metropoli. The Rotunda was built in 306 AD by the Romans. It is one of the oldest landmarks in the world currently. The Rotunda was turned into a Christian church around 400 AD.
Due to its thick walls, the rotunda has been able to survive through multiple earthquakes. Today, people are still trying to decide whether the rotunda should be a museum or a church. The Hagia Sophia is one of the oldest Greek Orthodox churches still standing in Thessaloniki. The Hagia Sophia was built in the late 7th century and is an imitation of the original Hagia Sophia that was built in Istanbul, Turkey. The Jewish Holocaust Memorial was built in 1997. It commemorates the 50,000 Jews that were deported from Greece to Germany that never got a chance to return to Greece. The Metropolis of Thessaloniki was built in 315 BC. It is another Orthodox church in Thessaloniki. Then we set out to find the Kazan Dippy that we couldn't find earlier. We went to about 4 or 5 different spots and we could not find it. We had to call Mr. Tillinghast and he couldn't help us either. We had tried calling other members of other teams and they wouldn't help us. So after what felt like 5 hours of walking around, we finally found the place that had it, and once we tried it, we were all very disappointed. The scavenger hunt was definitely a success. Team Apollo came in first on time, but the overall presentation part of it, Team Artemis had come in first. On the last day, we had some free time in the square, and Kostas told us some places that we should go and look around because they had some pretty interesting souvenirs. And most of us before dinner went back down to the same ice cream place that we'd went to the day before and ate ice cream once again. And of course, when we were walking around, we met another dog that we decided to name Bougie, and it was really funny because he followed us all the way to dinner and back and barked at everyone who came close to us. At dinner, we had moussaka. Moussaka is an eggplant or potato-based dish, often including ground meat or some other type of meat.
We left the hotel at 8:30 that morning, but it felt like midnight to us. We had a long drive before we had to stop, so during the drive most of us were tired and just slept. First we went to Pella.
The archaeological site at Pella was very fascinating because of all the space it had. It was big compared to all of the other archaeological sites that we went to, and it had beautiful floors that decorated the city's many mansions. Pella was the ancient capital of King Archelaus of Macedon at the end of the 5th century. Pella is famous because it is the birthplace of Alexander the Great. Pella rapidly developed under King Philip II. After his death, Pella became a small town. Pella's excavations began in 1957, revealing large houses and the rest of the city. The main attraction is the House of Dionysus and has the world's biggest agora of the ancient times, which is a meeting area / shopping area. Pella was one of the many ancient cities to have an urban epidermis grid plan. It had well-defined city blocks, paved streets and paved sidewalks, and an elaborate water and sewage system.
Once we left Pella, we had another long drive ahead of us. Once we got to Vergina, we stopped at an animal graveyard where they sacrificed and buried animals to the gods, as well as a small Alexander the Great statue. Then we stopped at a restaurant just uphill from the Vergina Museum. After we ate, we went souvenir shopping and entered the museum.
Vergina is the modern name for the ancient city Aigai. It was the first capital of Macedon, ruled by 2 great leaders, Philip II of Macedon and his son and successor Alexander the Great. It is the site of Philip II's tomb, as well as an important royal palace. Philip II's grave was one of the very few in the region not disturbed or looted. Vergina is also located near the Cemetery of the Tumuli, a large cluster of over 500 tumuli that stretches over 3 kilometers. A tumulus is a burial mound consisting of a building similarly shaped to a temple covered in an artificial hill. A tumulus would most likely contain multiple generations of a family, with each person being buried in their own room of the temple.
After the museum, it was later in the day, and we drove back to the hotel in Thessaloniki. We had a few hours of free time before dinner, then we had dinner and went to bed around 9:30.
On day 9, we started out in Thessaloniki. We got on the bus and took a long drive to Athens with some fun stops along the way. One of the places we stopped at was Dion. It was a very long drive, but the views were amazing because we were basically driving across the whole country, so we got to see so many cool things out of the window. Later in the morning, we stopped in Dion. Dion is considered the most important archaeological site on Mount Olympus. The Dion Archaeological Park is pretty unknown, but it is one of the most interesting and beautiful places in Greece. In Dion, sanctuaries were found from the Hellenistic and Roman periods. The park displays the importance of Dion in the history of Peoria.
Dion was the most sacred city of Macedon, built at the foot of Mount Olympus, the home of the gods, with sanctuaries dedicated to Zeus, Demeter, Artemis, Asclepius, and the Egyptian goddess Isis. In Dion, you can admire one of the most interesting inventions of the Greeks, the ruins of heating systems and Greek bathhouses. While we were at the archaeological site, we also got to see the Hellenistic theater. The orchestra was constructed of earth fill built up in repeated layers. Its back was positioned to the west. The step seats were built by large slabs in the Hellenistic times and have been repaired many times since. We all took a picture in front of the theater with our FFA shirts. People who forgot theirs wore their global shirts. We finished with some extra time and it almost started to rain. Since we finished with a little bit of time left, we walked over to a museum and we took a tour of all the cool things that were remains in the archaeological site.
Greek night was definitely the highlight of the day. When we got there, they all gave us a little souvlaki to put on the grill. After we did that, they told us how they used to press olives to make olive oil. They let some of us try the old press machine. Then they gave us this really good bread and olive oil. It was probably the best bread and olive oil from the whole trip. After that, they let us try some of their fresh olives. Then they gave us this little dessert to try. It was really good too. We went into the other big room and picked a table and sat down. The Arts and Humanities class was there as well. It was really fun to see everyone else from the other class. They had Coca-Cola, bread, and some things to dip our bread into. They had a live band and they were playing some traditional Greek music. They had Greek dancers that were doing crazy jumps, and then we were invited to dance with them. After we were done dancing, we got to do plate smashing, which was really fun. We were basically sitting down, and then they had this little skit thing where it ended in someone smashing a plate, and they told us all to get up and start smashing plates too. It was really loud and fun. Then there was a sweeping competition that Mr. Tillinghast and Dr. Brown competed in along with other guys. We ate dinner, which was really good. There was Greek pasta, spinach pie, moussaka, and much more for everyone to have, and it was all delicious. Once dinner was done, we started dancing. After all the dancing was over, it was time to go home. We got to take a little group picture with the people who hosted us, and it was really cool.
While we were on the way back to the hotel after Greek night was over, we started singing together, and then Kostas said his goodbye, which made a lot of us emotional. We got back to the hotel and it was super late. We tried to go to bed early so we were ready for the flights.
Day 9 was such a fun day. It left us with so many memories that we will never forget and we will cherish forever.
To begin our trip home, we woke up at 4:30 a.m. to load the bus and drive to the airport. We were all super sad when we had to say goodbye to Kostas. When we went through security, some of us got checked for gunpowder, but we all went through okay. We were all super tired, and once we reached the terminal, most of us went to get breakfast before it was time to board our flight. We boarded our flight to Frankfurt at 8:25 a.m. and waited for takeoff. We were really sad to leave Greece. Even though this flight was only 3 hours, to most of us it felt like the longest flight of all. Once we landed in Germany, we began walking towards our gate. As we were walking, we were stopped and asked if we'd been to China recently. Dr. Brown, Grant Victory, and Piper all got pulled to be more thoroughly checked for coronavirus. Our layover in Frankfurt was only around 2 hours, so we didn't have much time to walk around, so most of us just hung out in the terminal. Some of us bought souvenirs from the airport and got some snacks and lunch. After our short layover, we boarded our last international flight. The flight wasn't very full, and there were a few empty rows or rows with just one person. We got breakfast and dinner, and we even got ice cream, but most people didn't like it because it tasted like soap. Most of us slept and watched movies throughout the entire flight. All of the flight attendants were old and cranky, especially this one flight attendant. She asked Delaney, Sophie, and Maggie for drinks, and got really mad and yelled at Maggie when she didn't take her orange juice right away. It was really awkward because everyone could hear and was wondering what happened. The flight to Houston was almost 12 hours long, which led to a lot of boredom for us to sit through. When we arrived in Houston, we had to go through customs, which took a long time. It was an overall simple process, but kind of scary. We had to wait for a long time, then go through security and answer questions about where we had traveled to. We also had to walk past detection dogs, then go through TSA. We had gone the entire trip without losing anything, but we thought we had lost Sarah Lurkey's luggage, but a worker had actually just taken it off the luggage carousel and placed it to the side. We then had to recheck our bags and head to our terminal. Almost everyone got food, and then we sat in the terminal, which was really cold, while our flight was delayed by an hour. Once we boarded, we were really sad to be in our last flight before our trip was officially over. Even though it was a short flight, almost everyone slept the entire time. Once we landed, we got off the plane and prepared to see our parents. Mr. Tillinghast's parting words were, "Go home." We were greeted by our parents cheering, and most were holding signs. Then we waited to get our luggage and go home, officially ending our trip.
Welcome to the land of fame excess. Am I gonna fit in? Jumped in the cab, here I am for the first time. Look to my right and I see the Hollywood sign. This is all so crazy. Everybody seems so famous. My tummy's turning and I'm feeling kinda homesick. Too much pressure and I'm nervous. It's when the text and